and we switched off the camera. And as soon as we did, Matt, our camera guy, spotted something very, very high up, going very, very fast. Luckily, got the camera back on, and we caught it on film.
How did you come about sort of going from the idea of having it in your head that you wanted to make these shows to actually getting them off the ground? That's quite an inspirational
Yeah,
story.
but the weirdest thing that John explained to me is like, as well as having the orbs appear, which is weird enough, they had strange objects just drop from the sky. Weird. It's not just physical extraterrestrials from another planet. I don't think. I kind of think there's something else, whether they're in different dimensions or whether they're already here and they somehow mess with us a little bit.
The following is a conversation with Mark Christopher Lee. Mark is a musician and filmmaker, known as a singer and composer for the indie band The Pocket Gods since 1998, setting up his own digital label in 2005 and later working on production for TV and film. He also holds a number of Guinness World Records. Mark recently filmed Encounters of the Fifth Kind on Amazon Prime, exploring, testing and capturing a UFO on camera after CE5. He's also responsible for God vs. Aliens on Nub TV, now showing on Sky. Mark is also responsible for a new film coming soon called King of UFOs, where he explores the royal family's interest in UFOs and the paranormal. A fascinating man with a rich history in music and film and the UFO UAP subject. So, the following is a conversation with Mark Christopher Lee. Mark, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time. It's fascinating to get an opportunity to speak to you. If it's okay with you, what I'd like to kind of do is get a good idea of what kind of first piqued your interest. Where did it start in the kind of UFO UAP subject?
Sure. It started probably as a kid in the 1970s growing up. And I watched a program on ITV called Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, when it looks at all this unexplained phenomena, amongst which did an episode on UFOs. It was all, so that kind of first piqued my interest in the unexplained, so to speak. And I've always had that interest. And I had a weird experience around about that time too, when I was a kid, and something appeared in my room, and this kind of blue light. I assumed it was an angel at the time, like a portal coming through in my room as a kid. And gave me a message that everything would be all right, which I took and gave me great strength. But because at the time, the morning after, things turned for the worse. What should I say? I won't go into the details, but so it was kind of, that was a kind of a warning for me, and it's unexplained. I can't rationalize it. It wasn't a dream. So that kind of made me realize there's definitely something more to reality than physically what we see and hear, really, most of the time. So I've always had that, and I've had that as interest. And then I went to university. I did a science degree, so I'm quite kind of grounded in the sciences, and always look for the rational, conventional explanations. But I've come to realize over years that science kind of needs to evolve somewhere else to be able to explain what a lot of people are seeing and experiencing. So yeah, I mean, which is why I've ended up now making films about my passion, really, which I'm very grateful and very happy to do.
And did you, after this kind of experiences in your youth, was there kind of a period where things kind of sort of stayed on the back burner and, in the back of your head, and or did it kind of remain an interest quite consistently throughout?
No, I mean, I was a kid growing up. I loved Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, and I bought the Unexplained magazine, which came out. So I've always had that. And then at university, I started reading the 14 Times and things like that, the usual, the usual stuff. And then I became a musician after university, and I wrote a few songs about stuff, but wasn't really pursuing it really that much. I was concentrating on building my musical career, which I did to some success. But then I guess in the last few years, I've kind of following my passion. I'd also do paranormal music TV show on Sky called Nub TV, which basically mixes weird stuff with music, and that gives me a chance just to explore some of the topics that I want to really.
That's awesome. So you've managed to tie it into the music. So how did you come about sort of going from the idea of having it in your head that you wanted to make these shows to actually getting them off the ground? That's quite an inspirational
Yeah,
story.
I mean, I guess it's just the way I've kind of turned my life around from being quite unsuccessful, and then getting into a lot of personal debt and stuff like that. And then I was a bit of a mess, really. But then I kind of, without sounding too new age and hippie, I just discovered kind of people like Jack Canfield and the law of attraction. And I started kind of just focusing on what I wanted, not what I didn't want. And that really worked for me. And I thought, yeah, why can't I? And so I kind of visioned myself doing this TV show, making films, and somehow it's kind of worked out. So I do believe if you go in with the right mindset, your mind can pretty much create anything really. So I guess that's what's turned it around really.
That's fascinating. There's a lot of talk recently about this reflective aspect that the phenomena has
Mm,
with people, that you sort of, however you, what do you expect to see, you actually get reflected from it. So it's fascinating that you had that
yeah,
mindset.
I think the mind is definitely plays a part in what we're perceiving. I mean, I kind of read a lot of John Keel, and he kind of alludes to this in his various books, Operation Trojan Horse and the Cosmic Joker, that there's something weird. It's not just physical extraterrestrials from another planet. I don't think. I kind of think there's something else, whether they're in different dimensions or whether they're already here and they somehow mess with us a little bit, mess with our minds, and that's why they take the appearance of, they change their appearance to suit whoever's viewing it. I know Jacques Vallée was also inspired by this idea as well. So I guess that's where I've ended up in my research. As mad as it sounds, being, I have a science degree, quite rational. I think that is probably the more rational explanation than something traveling millions of light years and somehow finding our planet. I find that quite hard to believe.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Uh,
I think consciousness is sort of, it's like the unspoken part. It's like the black sheep of this discussion, isn't it, for a lot of people that are into just the nuts and bolts side.
yeah, absolutely. I think definitely consciousness plays a part, especially in paranormal phenomena as well. And I've been talking. There's a chap called John Hanson. I don't know if you know him. Haunted Skies Publishing. He's a
Right.
retired CID officer, very, very down to earth. But he's had experiences that he can't explain, and he's pretty sure that there's the paranormal and UFOs are linked. Uh, and he kind of inspired me to go and make this my latest film, because he actually took a group of people. One of them was Brenda Butler, a ufologist, and they went to Rendlesham. Obviously, why?
Right.
Because that's the hotspot, I guess, in this country. So they went to Rendlesham, and I had an idea to watch the skies and try and manifest or welcome some visitors. And I've seen the photographic evidence they did. There's orbs appeared. But the weirdest thing that John explained to me is, like, as well as having the orbs appear, which is weird enough, they had strange objects just drop from the sky, ports.
Thoughts.
Yeah, 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 in Rendlesham. Uh, so that's well weird. Uh, but that kind of inspired me to push this further, and I'm really going to go with this now, because it sounds radically out there that somehow by using your mind, your thoughts, you can, you know, invite or manifest a UFO, for want of a better words, or whatever these things are. Uh, and also, I've looked at Stephen Greer's work, but kind of what worries me about that is I don't think you should be charging people for an app and making money out of kind of turning it into a bit of a cult. But I found a really nice lady actually called Ray Dove in America, and she's worked with Dr. Greer. And she's very much for, this thing is real. Let's help people free of charge to use it and spread the word. So I took a lot of advice and got a lot of help from her. And she was amazing. So I think there's something to this. It's how we go and investigate it and record it. That's my mission at the moment.
Fascinating, fascinating. So talk to us a bit about UFO encounters of the fifth kind then, and how that your view of it from that aspect has come across in the film.
Yeah, well, like I said, after speaking to John Hanson and listening to his experiences, and I trust him, he's a down-to-earth ex-copper. He's got no reason to make this up. And he's, very matter of facts kind of guy. And he showed me the photographs and the video, and it's like, okay, there's something happening here. So I think maybe there is something to it. And I was a bit kind of, what's the word, skeptical about Dr. Greer's work. And some people have debunked it and things like that. But there's other people out there that insist there is something to it. And I always do think there is something about the mind, consciousness, like you said, that involved in this, which sounds radical, but then why not? I at the moment, science can't even explain, quantum entanglement and things like that. Still no reason. We can't, get to the bottom of what it's all about. So maybe there is proof there's more to life, and there's other things living with us or in other dimensions that we can communicate with. So yeah, but basically got a bunch of fellow kind of UFO lovers in St Albans. I live in St Albans in Hertfordshire. Luckily, I live in quite a remote area on top of a hill, and we basically just took the film crew and filmed at the back of our house. But we actually, I think after speaking to John Hanson and Brenda Butler, they found their spot in Rendlesham where to do it by dowsing. So I bought some dowsing rods. Never thought I'd say that, but and I located a spot with the dowsing rods. So we set up camp there, and so basically that's what we did. We found the right spot, and then we all sat around and just basically chilled out. We did kind of focus our minds, trying to connect to something out there. And to be honest, it was a lovely evening. Spent time with friends. One of the ladies, Katrine O'Neill, she's a big UFO person. She holds conferences and stuff. She's done it before. She's quite experienced. She started playing the Carpenter song, Calling Occupants of Interplanetary Craft, which is quite interesting. So anyway, nothing much happened. We saw the usual. We saw lots of planes. We saw stars all came out, a few satellites. But then we kind of, okay, but that's it. We had a good night, and we switched off the camera. And as soon as we did, Matt, our camera guy, spotted something very, very high up, going very, very fast. Luckily, got the camera back on, and we caught it on film. So something happened, which we caught, which was great, and it kind of gave us a massive buzz, really. And then we later find out from Ray Dove, who was helping us, with all the practicalities of it all. She said that there was another group at the same time in England that had something manifest as well. So, but the other interesting part of it was, the tabloids had done a story on it about dark forces being at work when we were making this film, which is slightly out of context, but it was quite weird. We did have Guy Thompson, who's my business partner, and was due to come up and do the UFO watch with us. Lots of weird stuff happened, and he woke up feeling really, really ill. His car wouldn't start. He had to get a taxi to the station, and the trains were all cancelled. And he just couldn't get here. Something, he thought that something was stopping him, and he felt nauseous, and he usually a pretty healthy chap, and he really wanted to be here big time. I mean, we did speak to him on Zoom, so he is in the film, but he was absolutely gutted, and he was sure that something else was at work. What it was, I don't know. Whether it was psychosomatic, I don't think so. I mean, the interesting thing about Guy Thompson is my business partner, and we started working together. He was helping me out on my record label at the time, and because he was in a band, and I thought, oh, that's great guy, and he really get on really well. We later found out we were both born on exactly the same day. Both had 3 kids, and we both at the time worked at the civil service. I also found out from him that he grew up in Warminster, and I later found out, I didn't know I had any interest in UFOs at the time because we were running a record label, but he had his own UFO experience in Warminster as a kid, probably about the same time that I had my thing appear to me in my room. So it's just weird synchronicities going on, how we've ended up working together.
Definitely, definitely. That's fascinating. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. It's funny you mentioned dowsing because dowsing's like a great little snapshot of this whole phenomenon. I live in Cheshire and I'm
Oh,
sort of from
right.
a sort of farming background,
Mm.
and loads of people around here would sort of, as soon as you ask or mention it, it's sort of like, oh yeah, well John from, he's always done this dowsing thing, and then it's just because it works and it's got this provable thing, they just go, well, that's a thing that works, but don't sort of take that next step into how on earth does this work, and
Yeah, that's it.
what's the science behind it. It's well, it works and that's a thing. So we've seen him do it. It's really, really interesting. So you
It
mentioned
is.
Dr. Greer. Do you
Mm.
do you see much of a He's got a fascinating
Mm.
career, and
Mm.
I completely agree in what you say. Like, I'm immensely respectful of his earlier work,
Mm. Mm. A
particularly
lot of
around
people
the
are.
Disclosure Project
Mm.
and whatnot, and with bringing the C5 vocabulary. I mean, it's now the term
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
public's mouths, but I do agree there's that certain element of ivory tower that creeps in if you're not careful. Um, but
Yeah.
what do you see much of a difference between that old school, the old guard, your Jacques
Mm.
Vallée's and
Mm.
Dr. Greer's, and what's happening now? And do you think it's a better environment, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's getting more, for want of a better word, democratic, less autocratic, where you've got the kind of the cult leaders telling everyone the message, I guess. Whereas people, I think people should try and experiment and find out themselves. That's very much what I'm about. And one of the reasons me wanting to make these films is like, okay, let's discuss UFOs, but it's not all about America. It's not all about the US. It all seems to be so much US centric. I mean, it's great. I guess we've got the disclosure movement in America, but why isn't it happening here? What's in the UK, and there's lots of other countries that have massive UFO cases and thousands of people seeing things. It's not just centered in the United States, and that's passionate about getting that message out, that just get people looking up, opening their minds to the fact that there's more to life than this physical reality. But I guess it is a double-edged sword, because maybe that's the real reason why we're not getting the truth about UFOs. Maybe the US government and those in the know that it's far weirder than just visitors from another planet, and that's the real reason why they're keeping it stum. And they'll try and shut down people like David Grush and all the others coming forward, because it's just too mind-blowing.
It's an excellent, excellent question for sure. I often wonder why America seems to be the be all and end all of the
Yeah,
discussion at the
I
moment. I
know.
mean, I understand we've got the Five Eyes and all of
Mm,
these people that are sort
mm,
of beholden
mm,
to America, so I
mm.
probably don't want to step out of line. But there's whole towns in Japan which celebrate the phenomena, and
Yeah.
France has been very open about it.
Mm,
Francisco Guerrera's finally bringing it forward to the EU. He's another
mm,
guest of the podcast, but it
brilliant.
definitely seems like the US is driving that narrative. And
Mm,
on the subject of that, do you think we're actually moving forwards? Because it seems like the discussion is very much in one place, which is this nuts and bolts
Mm,
technology faced
mm.
thing. But like we were saying earlier, the sort of unspoken bit is the fact that perhaps it's consciousness which interacts with it. And do you think we're actually making as much progress as it seems?
Uh, no, I don't. I don't think we are, to be honest. And I think, I mean, I've spoken to people. You probably have as well. That there are people in the U.S. government and the UK government and military that think UFOs are demonic and should be left alone. So I think that's very much still in the forefront of some. But then you got the likes of Tim Burchett, who thinks it's not just physical, there is something else going on. And he's been quite vocal about it. Uh, so I don't know, but part of me thinks, okay, if it is nuts and bolts, like we're saying, and there's this technology that exists that, say, the US government has got, and it's fabulous because it's traveled from distant worlds. Why can't that be used for the benefit of all mankind and not just for the certain sectors of the US military? So there's that aspect as well. Um, I mean, I guess I'm a bit old-fashioned liberal kind of, let's share it all out. Let's not just make money out of things. That's my ethos, I guess, which probably won't serve me well in the long run, but it's, we shall see.
Yeah, it's got you to hear. It's fascinating. Funnily enough, Tim Burchett was interviewed with Ross Coulthard the other night, and he,
Mm,
as much of a proponent for transparency and
mm.
learning about this as he is, said that he thought CE5 had a demonic aspect to it,
Right.
which
Okay.
really, really surprised me. But he
Yeah.
still thought that we should be discussing the
Mm,
subject. But then you get sort of another layer back where
mm.
demonic and angelic depends on how nice of an interaction you have. I mean, that
Yeah.
interaction that you had as a child,
Mm.
had
I
it
thought it was angelic.
terrified.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought it was angelic at the time. It was, it wasn't demonic. It was a hopeful message. Uh, so yeah, there may be something to it. I mean, Tim Becek does come from a, kind of Christian deep South background. So where, literal interpretation of the Bible. But I did make a film last year called God versus Aliens, which did really well on Tubi, and that explored the sightings in the Bible and things like that. Like we said earlier, it's like people experience things. They appeared in a certain form to, take on what was ever appropriate at the time. That does seem to have been the case. But, these angels and demons may be just tricksters, like John Keel said. I mean, it could just be way above us that we're never going to comprehend it, and it's always going to be out of reach. That is the worrying aspect. And, there is part of me is thinking, don't get too close. Get too close, you're going to, get burned or go mad, which people have done, haven't they?
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely. But then it's like they say you can't have one without the other. So
Mm.
they can't acknowledge the potential demonic side without also acknowledging the sort of beneficial angelic, if you want to use the same
Yeah.
vocabulary. So,
Mm.
well, it's something, funnily enough,
Mm.
that Jimmy and I have had a lot of discussions about off camera
Mhm.
because I've done CE5 myself.
Mhm.
And Jimmy is fascinated by it, but hasn't tried it yet. So it's something that he's really interested in communicating that to our audience. But
Mm.
then you have to considering it from as neutral a perspective as possible, people like
Yeah.
Diana Pazulka,
Mm.
who aren't they haven't got a pound in the game on either side, and she just said, well, you're dealing with something you don't understand, so why on earth would you want to try? So where do you think the ethics are regarding it? I mean, it is kind of like fishing in the dark a little bit, but then also I've
Well,
only
yeah,
had
maybe a
extremely positive.
bit like a Ouija board, I guess. People we don't know what they're doing. They're out there, and good things could come in, bad things could come in. I guess that's a similar thing as a portal in. And you're right. You don't know. We don't know what's out there. But like I say, we want to find the truth, and it's always that quest, isn't it? To find the quest, because there are a lot of unanswered questions about life, I think. And that's valid. I think that's a valid pursuit, a worthy pursuit. And that's the way I look at it. I'm on a journey, I'm on a quest. Wherever I get the answers, who knows? But you've got to enjoy the journey along the way.
100%, 100%. It's like you were saying before about that reflective thing, that and the people that tend to have a negative experience are the ones that go in with a combative attitude or expecting something bad. So there's
Yeah.
definitely something to your mindset
Yeah, I mean,
affecting.
yeah, that's interesting because I've interviewed a lot of people that recently that have had experiences, but unfortunately there is a link between people with mental health issues. I mean, I have mental health issues, and then having bad experiences is, so you have to question whether are people having these experiences because they've got mental health issues, or is it somehow, they're more connected? I don't know, but there is a link, definitely, I've noticed. Or do the experiences, give you mental health problems? There is something, yeah, there's something involved there, and there's a link which needs investigation, I think.
It's a discussion we need to be having for sure. I
Mm.
mean, the way I look at it is um, whether or not we are discussing it, it's happening anyway. So it's
Mm.
better to understand what we can about it rather than sort of shut ourselves off and put our heads under the blanket kind of thing. Whether or not it's good or bad, it's there and apparently has been as long as we
Yeah,
have.
and it keeps appearing. It's got some purpose, a monster interact with us. So yeah, you're right.
So what advice would you give somebody that's curious about TE5 in particular then?
Yeah, I would say do your research, speak to the right people. There's people like Ray Dove. She's easily contactable on Facebook and very, very nice. She's devised some protocols which are free of charge, which will keep you safe and grounded while you do that. I suggest also that it's important to choose the right people that you're going to be doing it with. Positive people are going in there with the right attitude. There's no point going in with negative people that don't want it to work and just want to. I don't think it will happen that way. So I think it's important to enjoy the experience, have people you're going to enjoy it with. I think there's something to that. If something happens, it happens. But got to have your mind open to it. And the worst thing, you have a nice evening with your friends, and that's all good.
Totally agree. Totally agree. So where can people see your documentary then, or hear a bit
Yeah,
more about you if they want
it's out
to?
now in the UK and the US on Amazon Prime. UFO Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Uh, yeah, let me know what you think. I mean, it's pretty much we filmed it as we did it, so there's no massive editing involved. There's no special effects. It's not Spielberg. It's but yeah.
I think that's refreshing though. I think we've come away from the CGI aliens and the X-Files music and things like that in the background. It'd be nice to have somebody's honest take on it.
Yeah.
That's so what's your plans for the future then?
Actually, I've just finished a film at the moment. It's with the Rain Dance Film Festival. They've produced it with me, and it's called The King of UFOs, and it explores the British royal family's interest in the paranormal and UFOs, and going back to Prince Albert, actually, Queen Victoria's consort. He was the first royal that I could find that's had a UFO sighting. Going through to Lord Mountbatten, obviously Prince Philip, some weird stuff there, and also the Queen, who had a massive interest in crop circles. And great story that she sent one of her scientific advisors in the middle of the night down to Wiltshire. There's a Japanese film crew there trying to film this crop circle being formed, and she sent her own advisor down there at night. So yeah, her and Prince Philip had their own massive library of UFO books, which is wow. And then we look at how what King Charles could do about the disclosure process, and we got a fascinating story from a Canadian diver called Dan Costello, who alleges that Prince Charles at the time flew a prototype UFO in Canada whilst he was in the Navy. And it's a weird story. But it's a fascinating film. It's called The King of UFOs. It'll be coming out this summer.
That sounds fascinating, right up my street.
It's
That
with my
especially
son.
the prototype UFO. I've been studying Mark McCandlish and
Okay,
his
yeah.
stories at the moment for a little thing I'm doing. And
Mm.
God, the rabbit hole. Once you start looking, you get to the anti-gravity research and all that kind of stuff. It's
Yeah, this has got some links with Tesla, apparently. I mean, some of it is provable, but some of it is just, not at the moment. But it's a fascinating story nonetheless. Looking forward to sharing it with everyone.
Yeah, can't wait for that. Well, I'm conscious of your time, Mark. I don't want to
No.
take any much of it up, but this has been a fantastic discussion. Thank you
Yeah, I
very
loved
much.
it. Thank you for having me. It's been much
And
appreciated.
look forward to seeing your continued success.
Thank you, sir. Much
All
appreciated.
right. Okay,
Take
take
care.
care. See you soon. Thanks a
See
lot.
you later.